Hello and welcome to the Blue Line. Today we're discussing the Western Conference. Here, as always, with us is Lloyd and Callum Taylor coming from Toronto. How you doing, boys?
Good, Rafe. Bright and sunny, an hour north of Toronto.
Lovely.
Yep, doing good.
All right, so Western Division. You got a lot of good teams in there, but you got a lot of teams that are struggling, really hanging around the bottom. So let's get into it, right? Let's run through them. Start off in Colorado. Nate MacKinnon is second on the MVP odds, and they are, if any team can compete for a cup, they're up there. What do you boys think of them?
Yeah, I think Colorado, they're right now they're as strong as they've ever been. Super strong on both ends of the ice. They got a great first line, great defense. Cale Makar is definitely one of the front runners for the Norris Trophy so far this year. The goaltending's been good. Grubauer's had a couple of shutouts, and they're at the top of the division right now. I don't know if I put them as the best team, but I think they definitely have the most talent. And if they can get it together, they can definitely make a cup run.
I agree with you, Rafe. There's haves and have-nots in this division. I actually don't think it's maybe as strong as you might. I think there's more teams that are going to struggle than that are going to succeed. But I think Colorado is one of the ones that's a strong team for sure. The one name that I would add to the list is Nazem Kadri. Leafs should never let him go. Full of grit, full of talent, an important name on that Colorado team.
Yeah, this year they look super. They have a lot of depth. Rantanen should have another great year. Landeskog's off to a bit of a slow start, but it has been pretty good, and he's still a great leader. And obviously MacKinnon still playing at a very high level. And then they added Devin Taves on defense, who's had a great start, and he's injured right now. But yeah, it's looking very good for them.
Well, you said something about leaving out bias before we started recording. Your Leafs fan is showing early. All right, boys, let's move on to Vegas, Sin City. The Golden Knights officially named their first captain, Mark Stone. With the moves they've made in the offseason, how is this going to help them get over the hump, finally get to that Stanley Cup?
Well, I'll jump in first on this one. Peter Angelo is the key. What a huge acquisition for them. That makes all the difference on that team. Stone may be the captain, but I think Peter Angelo is the anchor now. And then it's goaltending. Leonard and Fleury, maybe the best tandem in the league, certainly the best tandem in this division. Already a great team, now strong.
Good choice for the captain. Could have been Pacioretty. Pacioretty's also a great player, having a pretty good start. They've got Theodore Marceau. And then, yeah, obviously the best goalie tandem in the league, I'd say, with Fleury and Leonard, who would both be great starting goalies on almost any team in the league. And yeah, Pietrangelo, great leader, great addition to the D. He should be a huge help to getting them into the playoffs. I think they easily finished first in this division.
All right, well, let's move on to St. Louis. They're through 12 games, tied for first in the division, but some think that the cup window might be closed. I mean, they made the finals in 2019 and just missed out last year. Do you think they still have a shot, or is it time to start looking to the future?
I think they definitely still have a shot. I don't think they're going to do any rebuilding anytime soon. Kyrou has had a great breakout season so far. I don't see them. I see them about third in the division. I don't see them making a huge playoff run, but they are a pretty good team. Still, a lot of familiar faces from the cup winning team. I'd say Binnington is a pretty good goalie. He hasn't lived up to as much of the hype as he was given. But yeah, they've got some great leaders, some great players on that team.
I am saying, yeah, great team. They can compete for a playoff spot this year, but they're going in the wrong direction. That cup window is closed. The loss of Pietrangelo is huge. Binnington, that's a big question mark. Losing Jake Allen is huge. He was the better goalie for them last year. Now they're relying on Binnington to bounce back. Pietrangelo gone. Solid team, solid season. probably a playoff team, no longer a cup contender.
Righto. Okay, let's move on to the Wild. Is this a rebuild or a reload in Minnesota? They brought in a few new faces, especially considering their goaltending struggles. But are they facing several years of retooling the team, or are they set to go?
The Minnesota Wild are in the wilderness, let me tell you that. They've lost Koivu and Stahl. This is a rebuild. They're starting to take that team down. This is not going to be a good year for the Wild. I do not see them in the top four.
I have to disagree a little bit there. I don't think they should be going for a playoff spot. I think they should go for a little bit of a drop season where they can hopefully get a few good picks. But so far, it's looking like they could squeak into the fourth spot and make the playoffs. Stutter's been having a pretty good year on defense, and I think Talbot could be the starting goalie. He's been struggled on a lot of teams, but he's played pretty solid. So I think they could possibly make the playoffs, but I don't see them getting anywhere past the first round.
All right. Okay, now I got a bit of a multiple choice for you here. Among the Ducks, Sharks, and Kings, are there any sleepers? If there is, who is it and why? And who's the worst team of that bunch?
I'll defer to you first here, Kellen.
Okay, I don't think there's any sleepers really there. I'd say the Sharks could possibly be a sleeper, considering how good they were just a few years ago. They had like a strange drop off, but I mean, if Carlson and Brent Burns can have good seasons, the goaltending is a little bit of struggle. Jones he was a pretty good goalie when they were doing well, and looks like he might be one of the reasons they fell off a little bit. But it looks like they're starting Dubnyk now. He's a pretty good goalie, but I don't think they're coming anywhere near a playoff spot this year. And I'd say the worst team out of those three, I'd have to go with the Kings. There's no really bright spots on the Kings. Doughty's old, Quick is old. Byfield, obviously, a great pick, and hopefully he can lead them to a good future. But right now, I don't see any good teams out of those three.
I definitely agree with Callum on who's the worst. That's the Kings. That's a cup team that they're just trying to hold on to, and that cup team is old and over their prime. They should have given up on some of those guys and started making changes sooner. Instead, they've still got that core group that just can't get it done anymore. Great names that Callum mentioned, but it's too late for the Kings. I would say my sleeper could be the Ducks. Getzlaf, I think, still has some game, and he just got Shattenkirk in the off season, which is a nice addition to the Ducks. So Getzlaf, Shattenkirk could be enough to push the Ducks through. I still don't see them making a playoff spot, but out of the three you mentioned, Rafe, I think they could be the strongest. Kings the weakest. That leaves Sharks in the middle. A little bit of a question mark. Carlson and Burns, it all hinges on them. What can they bring? Goaltending is unsteady. They've lost Jumbo Joe to Toronto. That was a big leadership loss, and still a talented guy. So I put them in the middle, not a playoff team. As I say, Kings at the bottom, Ducks, a chance to surprise.
I don't want to move on from the Sharks just yet. Let's talk about Evander Kane. His offseason's been full of headlines. He draws a lot of negative press to your team. If you're the Sharks, what do you do with a guy like that? Do you trade him, or do you try and keep him because of the production that he brings? Callum?
Yeah, he's a very interesting player, a very interesting guy, but I don't see them trading him just yet. Maybe he does any more negative things, they could end up dealing him. But right now, he's one of their top guys. I think one of the only bright spots on that team. Him and Couture are the only maybe hurdle playing at high level. Burns has had a pretty good start, but Kane, I think he's just too valuable to give away for them right now.
I would say that if the Sharks were on the verge of a cup, you put up with Kane because he's a piece that can help you get that ring. They're nowhere near a cup. They're in rebuild mode. you might as well move him out. He's a distraction. He's a negative piece in too many ways. It's going to be too long until you benefit from his skills. Even though he's important today, he can't get you into the playoffs. Make the move now. Get what you can for the future.
All right, we got one more team before I ask for your final predictions. The Coyotes. They fired their general manager. They lost their first-round draft pick, and Taylor Hall left for Buffalo. They are a team in disarray. What do they do?
I have no idea. It's a shock every season that the Coyotes are even still operating. That team's been on the verge of moving or folding its tent every season. There's always some sort of controversy swirling around the team. And now you mentioned the loss of Taylor Hall. I think that's significant. And Taylor Hall didn't just get moved. He wanted out of town. He could see what was going on there. That's a message that team is a mess. I don't think there's anything there to hope for. They've got a few decent pieces. Guys like Phil Kessel that are coming to the end of the road, but still bring a little bit of talent. I don't think there's much hope in Coyote future.
Yeah, I agree. It's not looking good for them. They're in a really difficult situation. Hard to know what they should do. I guess they just need to kind of rebuild, get a few good draft picks, maybe trade for some picks. Because I'm sure there's some teams who would like Phil Kessel, maybe players like Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who has just dealt with a lot of injuries recently, so he hasn't been much help. Chychrun, I don't really know how to pronounce his name, but he's definitely been a bright spot for them. The only player who I think has overperformed this season, maybe Garland, but yeah, it's not looking good. I think they tank this season and start to rebuild.
Right on, then let's get to those predictions. Give me your 3 best teams, your 1 worst.
And I'll jump in. 3 best teams. Let's think. I'm going to go Vegas on top, Colorado second, and then a real risky pick. I'm going to see the Ducks squeaking into third, and then easily the Kings bottom of the pack.
Yeah, I mostly agree. I'd say Vegas definitely at number 1. I could easily see it being Colorado, though. I think Vegas they're the most well-coached, most well-rounded team. Great goalie, great defense, great offense. There's not many flaws there. Number 2, Colorado. I'd say they might be the most talented team in the league. The coaching is pretty good. The defense has been pretty good. But they just don't look as strong as Vegas so far, or they haven't had much success in the playoffs either. And at 3, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to go with St. Louis. I still think, even though I don't see a cup in their future, I still think they're a pretty good team. I think Binnington has played pretty good this season. I think he'll make a bit of a comeback year. Kyrou, hopefully he keeps that up. Ryan O'Reilly's still a good player. I think they still have definitely some good pieces that can hold them together, put them into the 3rd spot. And yeah, and at 8th, I'll go with the Kings as well. It's just not looking good for them. Anze Kopitar has had a very surprising start to the season. Playing very well. But yeah, obviously not enough. Looks like with Quinton Byfield, they might have a bit of a bright future. But with the guys they have right now, it's not looking good.
All right, boys, always a pleasure talking to puck with you. From Halifax to Toronto, this is the Blue Line, Western Division. Cheers.
Thank you.
Right.